Good morning. I'm Mo Ivory in for Roland Martin, who is in LA at the NAACP Awards in Los Angeles. Now, coming up on News One Now on this Friday, Ferguson police have given the opportunity to try a less lethal gun attachment on the streets. Really? Black Lives Matter 101. One college is offering up that course. And 10,000 black engineers and STEM students are gathered in the nation's capital to celebrate their achievements and demand a place at the tech table. Plus, it's a new year and time for a new you. And you can make that change in just 1 minute. Yes, 1 minute. And all that and more coming up right now on News One Now. First this morning, Bobbi Kristina is not brain dead, says her family as they try to squash reports that they're gathering to say goodbye to her. The 21-year-old daughter of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in a bathtub in her home on Saturday. Yesterday, Bobby Brown was seen outside of the Atlanta area hospital where his daughter is being treated. No comments have been made by her supposed husband, Nick Gordon. According to Bobby Brown's attorney, Bobbi Kristina was never even married to Nick. That means if Bobbi Kristina doesn't have a will, the money that Whitney Houston left her will go to her next of kin. And you can all guess who that is. Yes, it's her father, Bobby Brown. Now let's talk about it with my panel today. Stacey Johnson is a Republican strategist, Ray Baker of Ray Baker Media, and Drew Elons, who's a political and lifestyle blogger. Okay. So when we hear that, most people would go, what, Bobby would get the money? I mean, first of all, we want to say prayers for Bobbi Kristina. We want a full recovery. That's what we want.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
We have been hearing conflicting reports about whether or not she is brain dead. Just this morning, them saying that she is not brain dead. But if she is and she's unable to recover, reports have already started speculating about where her mother's money would go. So what do you think about the idea that if Whitney Houston didn't leave specific instructions for what happens after Bobbi Kristina's demise, then what, and there is no will of Bobbi Kristina, by Georgia laws, the money would go to her next of kin. If she's not married, that's her father.
I beg to differ. I think that by Georgia law or by next of kin would be her grandmother and her uncles.
Well,
because her parents are divorced.
No, but next of kin is the father.
Yes.
Under the law, absolutely, next of kin is the father.
I don't think her grandparents and her uncles and aunts are going to let that happen, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, they may try to. Go ahead, Drew.
I was just thinking, probably, you know, anytime there's a funeral and someone passes away, which, again, to your point, I am not wishing this for Bobbi Kristina, but anytime there's a funeral, whether you got a whole lot of money or itty-bitty money, there's always an issue in the family, especially when there's not something already in writing. So to me, it seems like it will go into a state, and unfortunately for us, it's going to be something that's going to be in the public, in the media, a very bad battle about where money goes. You know, she has foundations, and there's going to be this estate and how things are situated. But it's going to be an unfortunate battle, but one that we're used to.
Like, yes, but battles at death don't only happen in the black community. I mean, Robin Williams' family right now is fighting over the suit he wore at his wedding, over the awards he got, over the memorabilia he's kept. So I mean,
grab my Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we definitely know that, you know, black funerals have their thing, but it's just, it's not just in our community. White people go through the same exact thing, and you know, as we have evidenced with Robin Williams' family. But Drew, Ray, Sissy Houston, what could you imagine she could be thinking right now?
She's in probably a terrible place, one that we wouldn't wish on any person. But so too is Bobby Brown in many ways. Despite the divorce that he had with Whitney Houston, you're losing ostensibly your ex-wife and your daughter, God forbid, but from what we're seeing, it's looking like it's going to be that way, unfortunately. You're losing those folks in the span of less than 5 years, and with understandable addictions that Mr. Brown may or may not have been suffering through, we hope that these unfortunate life events don't put him back in that spiral. So I think our first concern goes right there, and whatever type of squabble between family over money, that may play a secondary.
You know, talking about a spiral for Bobby Brown, I ran into Bobby at the airport several months ago, and he was looking very well. well. And we talked for a little bit, and we even got a chance to, you know, chat it up before we went to our flights. And he seemed in a very good place. He was coming off of the New Edition tour, and he was newly married, and his wife was with him. And, you know, he seemed like just very happy and in a great place. And so it's so tragic that, you know, he would lose Whitney, and then he would find, you know, some happiness on the road again with his wife, and then have this happen to Bobbi Kristina. But even inside of all of this sadness, it does seem that he is taking care of the legal issues, because he has found and declared by his attorneys that she is not married, which would make him the next of kin. You know, they have a restraining order against Nick Gordon. He cannot come to the hospital to see Bobbi Kristina. So even in the midst of all the sadness, there is somebody handling the business and being concerned about what will happen next. So, I mean, that's a good thing, I think, because a lot of times people just completely forget to take care of those issues.
And it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate that right now that we can't really focus on praying for the family and praying for Bobbi, to your point about Bobby Brown, as far as how this is impacting him and Sissy and the whole family, I'm sure, is just totally devastated about whatever the situation is. They know specifically what's going on. But on the flip note, to the point at hand that you brought up, it's unfortunate that we have to think about these things. And that's why it should be also a reminder to us everyday people who might be, you know, have one penny. We need to figure out, what does this mean long term?
That is just the absolute truth. To take care of your affairs,
Take care of your affairs. Number one, I always had a will. I have a living will, and I think every one of us probably have that, because we know how important that is. But, you know, also with Bobby Brown, this is a critical point for him, in that, if you remember, in 2011 and 2012, he lost his mother and his father. And then in 2012, Whitney Houston passed away. And now 3 years later, here's the problem with Bobbi Kristina, which I hope she'll pull out of this, because no parent wants their child to go through.
That was the point I was just thinking about. If no parent wants to bury their child, imagine a grandparent burying their child.
And their
child
and their grandchild.
So when you alluded to Sissy Houston, I thought just about that. So parents don't expect to outlive their children. And then for grandparents to have to do that, we also have to make sure we take care of the welfare and look into the health of Sissy Houston after this.
Keep them lifted.
Thank you for that. That's very important. Up next on News One Now, Ferguson police, if you can believe this, Ferguson police are being trained to use less lethal force with a new method, and they're going to test it on Ferguson police officers. Black Lives Matter is not just a Twitter hashtag anymore. Now it's an Ivy League college course, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Then later, it's time to start living your life in 3D. Best-selling author Willie Jolly is here to show us how to make it happen in just 60 seconds a day. Okay, I need that. Hit me up with your thoughts on Twitter at Mo Ivory or at News One, or on the News One Facebook page. It's 7 after the hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The latest job numbers are out. The U.S. national unemployment rate remains steady at 5.7%, with 257,000 jobs added in January. By race, current employment rates are 10.3% for African Americans, 6.7% for Hispanics, 4.9% for whites, and 4% for Asians. 6 months after the shooting of unarmed teen Michael Brown, Ferguson police are now testing a less lethal gun attachment device in an effort to prevent more unwanted shooting deaths. Okay, that means choosing the Ferguson Police Department to test out a new way of using lethal force. Okay, just digest that for a minute. The attachment is made by Alternative Ballistics. It is a one-time use device that is supposed to knock a suspect down, not kill them. But the manufacturer cannot guarantee that the person wouldn't be killed. Right now, 5 Ferguson officers are testing the device on the streets. Then the city will make the decision whether or not to allow the entire department to use it. Let's get the panel in on this discussion. Stacey Johnson, Republican strategist, Ray Baker of Ray Baker Media, and Drew Elon's political and lifestyle blogger. Okay, when I read this, I thought this cannot be for real, because who in their right mind would use the Ferguson Police Department to test anything? You would think, well, let's go somewhere where things are going pretty well, and where officers are not, shooting people in the middle of the street, and, something like that. So What is your first impression of the idea that they would be testing something that the manufacturer says cannot guarantee won't kill?
I don't mean to be flippant about what you just said, but you said let's go somewhere where they're not shooting people in the middle of the street, so we must leave the United States. Because we've seen evidence, particularly with social media and video cameras, that abusive police practices are happening all over the United States.
But I mean that there are cities that are doing it a little bit better than others.
But more so to your point about being in Ferguson, I know that you spent some time in Ferguson over the summer and thereafter, and I was down there as well. Ferguson Police Department is ready and willing to engage citizens as if they're in combat. As long as the police department has this idea that they're in combat, it's going to be problematic no matter what the device is. And the attachment itself seems like a very poor idea as a way to conduct police activity. For one, as its critics have pointed out, if the police need a life or death situation where they do need to use their gun, to take the time to put the attachment onto the front of the gun is going to be problematic, if indeed they're protecting citizenry by harming someone else. Again, if a police is of sound mind to be able to put this attachment on that may save his life, perhaps he should not be shooting the person anyway.
In the middle of I'm about to shoot someone's situation. I'm about to shoot you, but hold on a second. Let me put this on the
is that a good idea? Because if it's life or death, then we need them to act with the hastiness that a gun provides. And if it's a situation where they can reasonably think, hey, I probably shouldn't kill this person, but should subdue them, they probably shouldn't be using their gun in that situation anyway.
Well, first off, I want to say that most police officers are not bad police officers. It happens to be that Ferguson is in a horrible situation, and they have no business, I think, testing something like that out because, like you said, first they've got to get it on the gun and somehow, you know, fire it off correctly. But then what if they're firing more than one shot? There's only that one little container for that one bullet. And then what happened to community policing? I think Ferguson should focus on community policing and restructuring their whole police department before they start thinking about using different mechanisms in which to attach to their gun.
Drew, we know that Ferguson has a training issue, right? They're not that great at training. I think the timing of bringing in something brand new that they would have to train on seems a little bit rushed when they have so many other things they need to go back and train on.
Well, to me, first of all, less lethal is akin to kind of pregnant. So in other words, I didn't really get that whole less lethal kind of description.
But not always, but might not all the time.
Kind of, I might be pregnant, it's kind of pink, but I'm not sure. So anyway, but then there comes the baby.
We've all been there.
9 months later, and then there's a baby. The other thing is this police officer and a lot of policemen right now, not everybody, of course, to your point, have an issue with discernment, understanding which way and how to use what's lethal force and how to determine, especially seems like with black people who, whatever reason, come up as being somebody who has superhuman, etc. So in other words, automatically they are looking at, specifically in these cases, black men as people who are potentially lethal just by being black. So I'm not sure that they'll be able to discern and take on the responsibility to understand when to use a less lethal attachment and when not to. So and that's where the training needs to come, because we go back. Why are black men or black people being stopped in the first place? Because there's a racial profiling thing that still goes on that we don't really talk about, but it's still very there.
And then I think about the very worst case scenario in that maybe they weren't, say before this device came out, they weren't going to pull their gun on somebody because they didn't maybe want to kill the person for what they were doing. But now if they have this and they think it could be a form of just slowing somebody down, but then it misoperates or they operate it incorrectly, now you've shot and killed somebody that you didn't even really intend to pull your gun on. And it could end up being a crutch.
But again, the whole less lethal thing, I mean, you have the stun gun situation. I think there's a woman not too far from here in Fairfax who actually was, who's critically injured with a stun gun. So at the point of, we just really need to step back a minute and talk about
the force.
Like how do you actually train a person to understand the appropriate time to use lethal force? And that's where we're failing.
The important question is that there is not an appropriate time to use a less lethal apparatus that you put onto a gun.
That's
because there's
gun is a gun.
If you're having
if you're pulling the gun, it's for a reason.
If you're pulling the gun, we need to go ahead and use it. And if you're not going to use it, then why are you having it out?
And is this just sort of a money deal for the manufacturer of this device? You know, and do they know, like, well, let's take it to the place where we're most likely going to have support of gun manufacturers, you know, Ferguson Police Department.
But why does a lot of free media?
Why does Ferguson think they need it?
Well, it's a PR, and that's the question. So when you're asking, is it money for the company, it's also PR for Ferguson, right? So Ferguson says this, now they can get out in front of it, and we can go back, and we know right now the Department of Justice is investigating all of St. Louis County's police department. So Ferguson said, hey, we're getting out in front of this. We're taking proactive steps, although any reasonable person can pick these steps apart and know that it's not meaningful.
Yeah, Stacey, do you feel like there's been any, you know, there will be no federal lawsuit against the officer? What do you feel is the tone in Ferguson now? Is this just a way to continue to make Ferguson a place that, in their mind, is doing better because all of these things are behind? Although many people would argue the officer in the first place should have been indicted, and then there also should have been a federal, you know, case. What do you think black people in general feel about Ferguson now? Have we forgotten about it?
I don't think any of us have forgotten about Ferguson because we're all black and we all live in America. And that being so, we don't forget about Ferguson because we see unlawful stops all the time, all over.
We experience them.
We experience them. My family experiences them. So I think that we see that and we don't forget about Ferguson. It's in the back of our mind. Whether or not there will be a federal probe and a federal lawsuit, we're not sure.
Forget about it. Yeah,
but we're not going to forget.
I agree with that. Coming up, Black Lives Matter 101. That's a new course. It's going to be taught at an Ivy League college. Can you believe that? Find out which one and why. And two science and technology trailblazers are here to kick off the 29th annual Black Engineer of the Year Awards. And we're going to show you how to just take 1 minute every day, and that can help you reinvent yourself in 2015. Hit me up with your thoughts on Twitter at Mo Ivory or at News One or on the News One Facebook page. It's 19 after the hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In Watch Your Health news, did you know that an estimated 1 in 16 black men and 1 in 32 black women will be diagnosed with HIV infection? That startling fact comes from the CDC. But this Saturday, you can help change that by participating in the National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. It's a day not only to recognize those we've lost, but also to get educated, get involved, and even get tested and treated. National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day was founded in 1999 in response to the growing epidemic in black communities. If you want more information, you can visit nationalblackaidsday.org. Also, today is National Wear Red Day in support of heart disease awareness. Heart disease is the #1 killer for all Americans, and African Americans carry a disproportionately high risk. Almost 48% of black women, this high, and 44% of black men have some form of heart disease. Blacks remain particularly susceptible despite the disease being 80% preventable. So for more information, please visit goredforwomen.org. Now, Black Lives Matter has grown beyond a hashtag, practically a movement. And guess what? It's now a college course. I think that's so good. That's right. And you wouldn't believe where? Dartmouth. Dartmouth College will offer a 10-week, 10-professor Black Lives Matter course. The course will examine race and inequality through the prism of recent events like the protests in Ferguson and other places nationwide. So is this something that should be implemented at all colleges or at other colleges, especially maybe HBCUs? Let's get my panel back in on this one. Welcome back, Stacey, Drew, and Ray. So I saw the headline, Black Lives Matter course, and I just knew it was at Howard. Like, I just thought, oh yeah, that must be going on at Howard. That's awesome and excellent. And then I saw it was Dartmouth College, a very white, prestigious Ivy League school, taking the lead on having these conversations. What do you guys think?
I think that's awesome. I think it's great, but I think what we need to do first is focus on blacks treating blacks well. You know, when we teach each other and we treat each other well, then other minorities will see, and the majorities will see that they treat us well.
What course would that be?
That would be starting at home.
Well, that would be like what HBCUs were built for.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
That's what it's for.
Okay.
And you know, and just to give you a little example, and I'll make it quick. I went to a bank and I went to the drive-through, and it was an African-American female teller. And I had gone in the wrong side, and the light was red, and she told me to back out and go all the way around just to get waited on. Had I been a Caucasian male, she would not have told me that. So I think she would not have told me that. She would have taken him where he was. She would not have made him go all the way around and come back.
No, Stacey, you could be sure of that, because I've had some really crazy encounters with white drive-through folks who have treated me really badly, and I could say, well, if it had been a white person that they would treat, no, I don't know that they were just doing that to me as much as they had bad manners and bad service.
But I'm saying this is black on black. I'm saying we have to treat each other well.
So one of the things that you mentioned, that let's staying to the question of of Black Lives Matter. Mo, you mentioned you thought it would be at Howard University. Howard has no need to have a Black Lives Matter course because its entire function is Black Lives Matter.
Point.
And so time and time again. The second point you mentioned about the functionality and the usefulness of treating each other well, I think that some time spent at some of the best and brightest historically Black colleges and universities in our nation would affirm that what you're asking for has been happening since at least the end of the 1800s. We could look at the work of Dr. Josh Myers at Howard University. We could look at the work of Dr. Walter Kimbrough down at Dillard University. These folks are doing this work already. And I think of particular note, some may want to celebrate the Black Lives Matter course at Dartmouth. I'm disappointed that it's happening now. In that course, they're going to talk about redlining, housing discrimination, how that's led to the prison industrial complex. If Dartmouth is supposed to be among the premier universities in our nation, and the prison industrial complex is ruining large swaths of our nation, why are they just now talking about this? So there's no reward on my part for them.
And we could, every time something is done in our country or around our educational system that is, marked as an improvement for African Americans, and we can say, well, it happened too late. It should have happened before. I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and I agree. And I'm not even disagreeing with you. But I just think that we always have to, we could make that argument for almost anything that happens, because obviously that should be a part of American education, right? Those courses on why police brutality didn't start with Ferguson. So, I mean, it definitely, Black Lives Matter didn't just happen when, that happened in Ferguson. So I definitely think that that's the truth. But if it starts now, yay, and let's move forward, and will other colleges begin to adapt that kind of a curriculum?
I think it should depend upon the environment of the different colleges. And I find this 10-week course curious. And so I'm not ready to give them an applause, nor am I saying poo-poo on this idea. I think when we are talking about at a majority college, that most of those conversations should have a way to go on, because you still have people when they're submitting dissertations around trying to get their PhD or their master's around anything around race, a lot of times it's hard for them to get approval. So there's a larger picture and a larger conversation that needs to go along with Black Lives Matter. But something to what Stacey said, I want us not to forget that Black Lives Matter is not only speaking outwardly, but it's also speaking inwardly. And I'm not talking about how we don't treat one another right, but how when you look at these things on TV constantly about how we're being portrayed, and from reality shows to all these different things, that what we have to come back to and really grasp for ourselves is that we do matter, and we should want better. We should expect better. I don't believe that if we treat each other better, that everybody else is going to treat us good. I think we just need to understand for ourselves that we matter, and just really hold on to the Black Lives Matter movement, and not let it get away from what it can actually mean to you and how you can use that to teach children coming.
If this 10-week course examines the historical perspectives of Black Lives Matter, then it almost would be like at the end of the 10-week course, you'd get to Ferguson. You couldn't start with Ferguson, right? So if it really is going to do that, I don't know if it's really going to do that.
We're concerned about. I had a conversation with a Harvard law student who was in school around the time of the case for George Zimmerman, and she said in one of her criminal justice courses, they were not discussing it. And so she was confused how here at, again, the nation's #1 law school, the case that was engulfing the nation, no matter what side or what your opinions of it were, and they weren't discussing it. So there's kudos to be had that in a place that we anticipate will produce the next Secretary of Treasury, the place is going to produce the next Attorney General, a place like Dartmouth where we think these kind of folks will come from, they will have had this context, so when it happens, God forbid, again, we can look at those folks and say, you were trained, you know better. This should not be a shock to you as it may be to generations.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that once this course sort of gives an example of, a curriculum content that other education drafters can look at, they might create a course, Selma to Ferguson. They might really go back and let our kids understand, because absolutely, all of that, because I would want my own 16-year-old daughter not to believe that this just began, because when I say Rodney King, it's kind of like she wasn't around when that happened. It's only on me to let her know where those kind of street things began to happen.
And those folks should go to HBCUs to see how it's being done,
Absolutely.
the education implemented.
I want to thank my panel so much. Coming up, we'll introduce you to the 2015 Black Engineer of the Year. Best-selling author Willie Jolly says it only takes a minute to change your life. We'll learn how next in New Year, New You. Plus, we're giving you a sneak peek at TV One's original movie, Whitewater. Hit me up with your thoughts on Twitter at Mo Ivory or at News One or on the News One Facebook page. It's 32 after the hour. Stay with us, and we are going to be right back. It doesn't have to take forever to make significant change for the better. It feels like it, though. My next guest says 60 seconds, 1 minute is all you need to activate a new you. Willie Jolly is here to break down his book. It only takes a minute to change your life. Okay, welcome, and how can you do that in a minute?
Well, greetings to you and everybody else. I start the same way all the time. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but an eternity is in it. Greetings to everybody and good morning.
Hi, Willie. So tell me, I mean, you know, so many people in the new year, they're trying to do things differently, me included. I said I was going to start working out and I was going to start doing yoga, and I haven't gotten to it until this week, and it's February.
Yes.
Okay? So
you're better than most.
Well, great. I mean, I said, you know, whenever it happens, I'm just going to not get on myself about it. I'm just going to be glad I started.
Yes.
So what is it that people need to do, and how can they do that in 1 minute to just get started?
Well, first of all, most people say they're going to start something new at the beginning of the year with resolutions. I've made a resolution, and I tell people at the beginning of the year, resolutions are a waste of time. You should set goals.
Okay.
Goals have power, and they get you activated to make things happen. And people always ask, well, can you really change your life in a minute? Absolutely. The minute you make a decision and move in a new direction is the minute you change your life.
Okay.
Now, you may not reach your destination in a minute, but you certainly can change your direction
So
in a minute.
the minute is relating to your mindset.
It's a
The minute
mindset.
is changing the way you think about something you want to
Absolutely.
do, even whether it's eating, the way you eat, if it's exercising, if it's your job. If
It's your life.
Everything.
Every
Yeah.
part of it, you change it. The minute you make a decision and move in a new direction, you change your life. Now, most people talk about it. Hell, I love to use this analogy. Two little birds sitting on a telephone wire. One of them decides to fly away. How many little birds you got left? Two. Because until you take action on your decisions, nothing
You haven't
happens.
done anything. Okay, so you love the 3 Ds. You
I
have
love the 3 Ds.
Right, and
All
the
right.
first one is dream.
You got to dream. You got to dream. You know, we've heard the concept of Martin Luther King standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with the great speech, I Have a Dream. Most people don't know where that emanated from when he was 15 years old, going into the office of Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays at Morehouse College with his father, and Dr. Mays giving him a piece said, this piece will help you and transform your thinking, that if you will dream and believe that dreams are possible, you can change the world. And he went with that in his heart, and I put it in my book, so it only takes a minute to change your life, setback, set up for a comeback, that if you can start to dream, you can start to do incredible things.
Yeah, but how does a person who has never experienced in their life sort of a big, you know, a big, great happening, really believe that they could dream the dreams that they have? Because, you know, they might look at television and see celebrities and money and all that kind of stuff and things that they just do not believe they could ever really have.
And many of them get discouraged,
Discouraged, for sure.
as child. You can't do that. Stop dreaming. Here's what I encourage people to do to recapture their dreams. Do an exercise. This is your homework. Everybody, this is your homework. Before this day is out, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. If you went to the doctor today, doctor said, I got good news and bad news. Bad news is you got 1 year to live. A guaranteed 1 year from today you will die. Good news is this illness you have also is a rare illness that guarantees anything you attempt in the next 365 days you will achieve. Impossible to fail. What 10 things would you go after if you knew you could not fail?
Wow,
Write them down.
that's a good
I want
question.
everybody to write them down.
That's so after you dream, then you've got to decide.
Then you got to decide. One of the decisions, you know, success is about decision. A decision is taken from the Greek word to cut. If you make an incision, you cut in. You make a decision, you cut off. If you're going to be all you can be and live your life to the fullest, you got to make a decision. First decision, stop hanging around with negative people.
Oh, that's a good
Gotta
one.
stop
Got
hanging
that?
around with negative people. Gotta
Don't
stop.
hang out with negative people.
And you know, people who are in your family family, love you, all that. Yeah, right. But they're not being mean-spirited. They suffer from possibility blindness. You want to go back to school. I went back and got my doctorate last year.
Wow,
it's hard when you're older.
Yes.
But you can do it.
But if you want to do it and you dream it, you should do it.
You can do it. So
okay, so that's the do part.
You got it. Well, the do part is action.
Okay.
A vision without an action is an illusion. An action without a vision is mere confusion. But a vision and action put together can give your life a transfusion.
Okay.
So I'm going to give everybody a gift. I want you to go to williejolly.com/free. williejolly.com/free. I got a copy of the book, Think and Grow Rich, a digital download of the book that changed my life, absolutely free, for everybody who goes to that, because that's a book that had an impact on my thinking. It's about mindset. You said it before.
Absolutely.
Once you change your mindset and then you develop your skill set, you start to have greater success in every part of your life.
And when you begin to change your mindset, it's a miraculous thing that happens. Those skill sets you don't have start coming into your life and filling in the places, because really people can see when you're not in your happiness. Or people can see when you're not, you know, sort of out there doing what you want to do. And then they don't jump in because they just don't think they really should.
It was possible.
Yes. And
look, you're looking at a guy who was a broke, busted nightclub singer who decided one day to change his life, who worked on his mindset, then skill set. 1999, I was named one of the top 5 speakers in the world. 2005, inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame. This year, I was named the #1 motivational, inspirational speaker in America. And I'm very proud to say our XM show just became the #1 motivational show on XM because I changed my thinking. You change your thinking, you can change your life.
Willie, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The 3 Ds, it's dream, decide, and do. I really love all of that. That is wonderful, everybody. 60 seconds, that's all it takes. I'm Mo Ivory, and this is News 1 Now. It is birthday shout-out time. Actor and director Robert Townsend, known for his film Hollywood Shuffle, turns 58 today. And singer Natalie Cole turns 65. Tomorrow, actress Essence Atkins turns 43. And comedian Chris Rock turns 50. Wow. On this day in history, in 1820, 86 former slaves depart New York to colonize Freetown, Sierra Leone in West Africa. In 1867, Robert Tanner Jackson becomes the first African-American to receive a degree in dentistry. Also, in 1867, the Peabody Fund, America's first educational nonprofit, is established to support African-American education in the South. As a part of TV One's Black History Month offerings, the movie Whitewater, starring Lorenz Tate and Sharon Leal, makes its debut tomorrow night. This TV One original movie is based on a book of the same name, inspired by true events. Set in the summer of 1963, Whitewater tells the story of Michael, a 7-year-old black kid who becomes obsessed with getting a drink from the whites' only water fountain. Here's a sneak peek.
And just down the street, there were even 2 kinds of drinking fountains. And after a long, hot bus ride, I couldn't wait to take a drink. And when you're thirsty, even warm, rusty water tastes good. But only to a certain point. Once you pretty much wet your lips, well, that was enough. So it didn't quite add up when that boy kept drinking and drinking. And that's when it hit me. The Whitewater must be different. It must be better.
Boy, what you think you doing?
Nothing, Mama.
Don't you nothing, Mama, me, and don't you be getting those ideas in your head. Us folk don't have them options, you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Too late. Ideas were flowing. Heading home, that Whitewater was all I could think about.
Tune in tomorrow night for TV One's premiere of Whitewater at 8 o'clock, 7 Central. Tonight's the night Black Hollywood will shine. You know, I'm talking about the 46th annual NAACP Image Awards. It's going to be great. You can watch it all unfold live right here on TV One. Red carpet coverage, all the fashion, all the celebrities. It begins all at 8 p.m. Eastern, and the star-studded ceremony follows at 9 p.m. Eastern. Roland Martin is on the scene, so you know you'll get a full update Monday morning on News One Now. Also on Monday, Roland's interview with one of the hosts of The Talk, comedian Cheryl Underwood. Plus, we're working to make sure you stay healthy with Fit, Live, Win. Be sure to go to newsone.com for more stories and updates. And you can catch me every day from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on WHUR 96.3 FM. Please follow me on Twitter at Mo Ivory. Also, you can friend the show on News One's Facebook page. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure to watch Whitewater and enjoy your weekend and catch the NAACP Awards. I hope that you have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much.